If you're not happy with the boring gray default form buttons, you can use an image as a form button too. You'll use the type equals image attribute of the input tag. An image form button behaves exactly like a regular submit button, with the additional feature that the X and Y coordinates of the point where the user clicked on the image will be submitted as well as the form data. The coordinates will be taken from the top left corner of the image. These coordinates are returned as the values of two field names, name.x and name.y, where name is the image button's name. For example, here I have an image name equal checkout, and I've gone up here to my form ID and I've used a method post action mail to mail this to my email address. So I went ahead and clicked on the document, and here in my email address I got this email: form post from Firefox, checkout.x equals 98, checkout.y equals 15, so I was 98 pixels from the left edge of the image and 15 pixels from the top. Checkout equals proceed to checkout. That's the value of the image button right here. Value equals proceed to checkout, so it submitted that data as well as the coordinates. Now the source and alt attributes can be added. These behave exactly like their counterparts with the image element, as I explained earlier. Notice that I have here a source attribute, so I'm pointing to the location of this image in my images subfolder in the work files folder. The name of this image is proceed-to-checkout.gif. There's my width and height values. Notice that I can change these to 100, for example. We'll make this much thinner. Change the width to 80. We'll make this much taller, also distorting the image. Let's set this back to the original values, 170 by 30 pixels. That looks better. Now it's also possible to create generic HTML buttons. These buttons won't actually do anything unless you write some code involving them. For example, using the onClick method to call some JavaScript that you've written. To create a generic form button, you'll simply use the syntax input type equals button, like so. The button is in quotation marks. The optional name attribute is the name of the form button, in this case my button. The value attribute specifies the value associated with the button and will also be the text label that appears on the button, like many of the form elements that I've demonstrated. Let's go ahead and change our value from click me to press me. Let's put a capital P there in press, and notice that the label on the button gets updated. So there you have some generic buttons that you can create in your HTML documents. Let's now move on to the next movie, and let me show you some methods for making your forms easier to use. One of the biggest problems with forms is that many users do not like using them, and one of the reasons is they're hard to use and they're formatted poorly. So let me move on to the next movie and give you some tips for making your forms just a little bit easier on your users.